Welcome, coin enthusiasts. Today, we're taking a fascinating look at two remarkable United States $1 coins, the Liberty Sacagawea dollar and the James Madison Presidential dollar. These coins may look like ordinary pieces of pocket change at first glance, but each one carries a unique story of American history, design, and collecting. From Sacagawea's powerful legacy and the distinctive golden appearance of her dollar, to James Madison's place in the early history of the United States, these coins offer much more than their $1 face value. So stay with us as we explore what makes these coins interesting, what details collectors look for, and why an ordinary-looking dollar can sometimes become an exciting discovery in the world of coin. United States Liberty Sacagawea $1 coin from 2000p begins with a story that changed the look of American dollar coins forever, because this unusual golden-colored piece introduced Sacagawea, the Shoshone woman remembered for her role in the Lewis and Clark expedition, to millions of Americans. On the obverse, her portrait faces right, carrying her infant son, Jean-Baptiste, while the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust surround the design, creating an image that feels both historic and remarkably modern. The 2000p designation tells us something important. This example was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where enormous numbers of these new dollar coins were produced during the launch of the Sacagawea series. At first glance, it can look like nothing more than a familiar golden dollar sitting quietly in a collection, a cash drawer, or an old jar of coins. But that ordinary appearance is exactly what makes the hunt so exciting. Every example carries the story of a major change in American coinage, and among the millions produced, collectors have always paid special attention to pieces that show unusual characteristics, exceptional preservation, or genuine mint-made errors. Turn the coin over and the mystery deepens, because the reverse presents a soaring American eagle surrounded by 17 stars, representing the states of the Union at the time of the Lewis and Clark expedition, with United States of America and $1 completing the design. The golden color is not the result of solid gold. The Sacagawea dollar was made from a copper core surrounded by outer layers of manganese brass, giving the coin its distinctive appearance while allowing it to circulate as a modern dollar denomination. That composition also means the surface can develop different shades depending on handling, storage, environmental exposure, and age. So a coin that looks dramatically darker, brighter, or more reddish than another example deserves closer inspection rather than an immediate assumption that it is rare. The smooth edge and distinctive construction further separate the coin from traditional silver-colored American dollars. And when the light moves across the surfaces, the relief of Sacagawea, the eagle, the stars, and the lettering can reveal tiny differences that the naked eye might miss at first. For collectors, that combination of historical symbolism and unusual metallurgy makes the 2000p Sacagawea dollar one of the most recognizable modern American dollar coins. But here is where the search becomes far more interesting, because the date and mint mark alone do not automatically turn a 2000p Sacagawea dollar into a fortune. The real excitement comes from discovering a legitimate variety, an unusual mint error, or an exceptionally preserved specimen that separates itself from the enormous population of ordinary examples. Collectors may examine the strike carefully, looking for areas where design details appear unusually weak or sharply defined, while also studying the rim for abnormalities such as an irregular shape, unusual thickness, or evidence of a striking problem. The alignment deserves attention too, because a coin that appears dramatically rotated when the obverse and reverse are viewed in the standard orientation may deserve professional examination. Letter doubling can also attract attention, but true double die characteristics are very different from simple machine doubling, damage, or postment movement of metal. That distinction is crucial, because a strange-looking letter or date is not automatically a valuable error. The most compelling discoveries are the ones that survive careful scrutiny and can be traced to the minting process itself. Now imagine finding one of these coins in an old collection and noticing something that seems just slightly wrong. Perhaps the rim appears different, the strike seems unusually strong in one area, or the surfaces show a feature that does not match ordinary wear. You place another 2000p Sacagawea dollar beside it, compare the color, rotate both coins, and suddenly the tiny difference becomes impossible to ignore. This is where responsible examination matters. Start with the weight using an accurate digital scale, because a meaningful weight difference can provide an important clue, although it does not prove an error by itself. Examine the metal color under neutral lighting rather than relying on a dramatic photograph, because chemicals, cleaning, heat, environmental exposure, and other postman effects can change the appearance of the surface. Inspect the edge and rim for genuine manufacturing abnormalities, and compare the lettering with known normal examples before claiming doubling. Most importantly, never scrape, polish, bend, or chemically treat the coin in an attempt to make an unusual feature more obvious, because an alteration can destroy collector value and make authentication more difficult. And now comes the question that can transform curiosity into obsession. What could a remarkable 2000p Sacagawea dollar potentially be worth? The answer depends heavily on exactly what the coin is, how authentic the unusual feature is, its condition, and what collectors are willing to pay at the time. To illustrate the kind of storytelling ladder that can make a discovery exciting, imagine a hypothetical example with a minor but legitimate variation entering a specialist market somewhere around the $2,500 to $3,500 range. A much more notable and convincingly authenticated example could create a completely different level of attention, with an illustrative scenario reaching around $9,000. These figures should never be treated as guaranteed prices for an ordinary 2000p Sacagawea dollar. They are hypothetical milestones showing how dramatically value can change when rarity, condition, authentication, and collector demand come together. Most coins will not come anywhere close to these numbers, and that reality is exactly why identifying the genuine exceptions requires patience rather than excitement alone. Take the latter one step higher, and imagine an exceptionally high-grade specimen that has survived with brilliant surfaces, powerful details, minimal marks, and outstanding eye appeal. In a purely illustrative scenario, a coin of extraordinary quality could be discussed around the $5,000 level, while an unusual and authenticated mint anomaly might be imagined around $6,000. A rare collector piece with a compelling combination of scarcity and demand could move towards $7,500 in this hypothetical storytelling framework. Then the numbers begin to sound almost unbelievable. $8,000 for an exceptionally preserved or genuinely uncommon example, $8,500 for an unusual discovery that attracts intense collector interest, and potentially as much as $9,000 for an extraordinary or historically significant example. Again, these are illustrative figures, not promises or standard market values for the 2000p Sacagawea dollar. Actual prices can be dramatically lower or higher depending on the exact variety or error, certification, grade, provenance, auction competition, and the evidence supporting the attribution. That distinction between an ordinary coin and a truly exceptional one is what makes the hunt so emotionally powerful. A normal circulated 2000p Sacagawea dollar is not suddenly worth thousands simply because someone posts a photograph online and calls it rare. The coin must tell a convincing story, and that story needs evidence. Think of the possibilities this way. An ordinary find might be a fascinating piece of American history, while an authenticated major rarity could theoretically become something much larger, almost like discovering an unexpected down payment on a home inside a box that had been forgotten for years. A dramatic auction result could feel like a sudden windfall, but collectors know that such outcomes are exceptional rather than typical. Even a coin that does not become a $5,000 discovery can still be meaningful because it connects the owner to the beginning of a major American dollar experiment and to the fascinating world of minting technology, errors, varieties, and preservation. If you believe your 2000p Sacagawea dollar has something unusual, the next step should be documentation, not guesswork. Photograph both sides clearly, record the weight with a reliable scale, inspect the edge without damaging it, and compare the suspected feature with multiple normal coins from the same series. Pay particular attention to the date, mint mark, lettering, rim, strike alignment, and any repeated characteristic that might indicate a genuine die variety rather than accidental damage. If the coin appears genuinely unusual, professional authentication and grading can become extremely important, because a respected third-party service can help establish whether the feature is real, whether it originated during the minting process, and what condition the coin actually possesses. This is especially important when the claimed value reaches thousands of dollars, because dramatic online claims can spread much faster than reliable numismatic evidence. The safest mindset is simple: treat every unusual coin as a mystery to investigate, not a fortune to assume. And perhaps that is the most fascinating lesson hidden inside this 2000p Sacagawea dollar. Rarity does not always announce itself with a giant warning sign. Sometimes it is buried beneath ordinary color, surrounded by familiar lettering, and sitting unnoticed among coins that have changed hands for decades. One small difference in a rim, one authentic mint-made doubling characteristic, one extraordinary strike, or one remarkable preservation state can completely change the conversation, but only careful examination can reveal whether that difference truly matters. So before you spend that golden dollar, before you toss it into a jar, and before you dismiss it as just another modern coin, take one more look at the date, the P mint mark, the surfaces, the edge, the alignment, and every tiny detail that makes the piece unique. Because somewhere among everyday pocket change and forgotten collections, another unusual coin may already be waiting, and the next one could be the discovery that makes the 2000p Sacagawea dollar seem like only the beginning. Stay alert, keep searching, and never assume an ordinary-looking coin has an ordinary story, because the next shocking American coin could be hiding exactly where nobody thinks to look. United States Liberty James Madison $1 coin from 1809 and 1817 sounds like the kind of discovery that could make a coin collector stop everything and look twice. But there is an important mystery hiding inside that description. The United States did not issue a James Madison $1 coin dated 1809 or 1817. Those years mark Madison's presidency, from 1809 through 1817, rather than the dates of a genuine Madison dollar coin. The official James Madison Presidential $1 coin was produced nearly 2 centuries later as part of the presidential $1 coin program, making this an important distinction for anyone examining an unfamiliar piece. And that distinction is exactly where the story becomes fascinating, because a coin that appears to connect Madison's presidency with an early 19th century dollar could be a modern commemorative, a fantasy piece, a reproduction, a privately made token, or simply a misidentified coin. On a genuine U.S. coin from Madison's lifetime, you would expect designs and denominations consistent with the early American coinage system of that era, not a modern presidential dollar format. That means the first question is not, how much is it worth? But rather, what exactly am I holding? Because in numismatics, identification comes before valuation, and sometimes the most valuable discovery is realizing that a mysterious coin is telling a completely different story than its date appears to suggest. James Madison himself gives this mystery an extraordinary historical backdrop. Born in 1751, Madison became one of the central architects of the American Republic, helped shape the Constitution, and later served as the nation's fourth president during a period of enormous pressure and uncertainty. His presidency included the War of 1812, a conflict that placed the young United States under tremendous financial and military strain. Imagine holding an object connected to that era and wondering whether it somehow survived more than 2 centuries, passed from one generation to another, and finally landed in your hands. That emotional possibility is exactly what makes early American numismatics so compelling. Yet a responsible collector must resist the temptation to let the story outrun the evidence. A genuine coin struck during Madison's presidency would need to fit the physical, metallurgical, and design characteristics of coins actually produced by the United States at that time. The modern James Madison Presidential $1, by contrast, has a completely different appearance, including the distinctive golden-colored manganese brass outer composition associated with the Presidential Dollar series and edge lettering. Those physical clues can immediately separate a genuine modern presidential dollar from an alleged 1809 or 1817 issue, turning what initially looks like a priceless historical mystery into a fascinating lesson in how American coinage evolved. Now look closely at the surface rather than the story printed around it. A genuine James Madison Presidential dollar has a modern portrait treatment and inscriptions associated with the Presidential $1 series, while an alleged 1809 or 1817 Madison dollar deserves intense skepticism if those dates appear as though they represent the coin's minting year. The color is another important clue. The golden appearance of a presidential dollar comes from its copper-based construction and manganese brass outer layers, not from solid gold. Under strong light, the field should reveal the texture and reflectivity expected from a modern circulating-style dollar, while the raised portrait, lettering, and rim should show a coherent relationship produced by proper dyes. Collectors should examine the edge as carefully as the faces, because presidential dollars are especially interesting for their edge lettering, and problems involving that process can create genuine varieties or errors. The rim should be examined for abnormal flattening, metal displacement, cracks, or unusual contours, but ordinary machine marks, dents, scratches, and circulation damage should not automatically be promoted into valuable mint errors. The same caution applies to doubled letters. True double die characteristics have specific shapes and relationships created during die preparation, whereas simple strike doubling or damage can produce misleading secondary images. A magnifying glass can reveal clues, but it cannot replace expertise. The most intriguing possibility is the error question, because genuine mint errors can transform an ordinary-looking coin into something collectors desperately want. But the word error is often abused online. A genuine minting anomaly must have a credible manufacturing explanation. On a presidential dollar, collectors might investigate unusual edge lettering, missing or incomplete edge inscriptions, double design elements, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, dramatic die cracks, or other documented abnormalities. Weight is another powerful checkpoint. A precision scale capable of measuring to at least hundredths of a gram can help determine whether a coin is consistent with its expected specifications, although a weight difference by itself does not prove an error. Metal color should also be treated carefully. A strange golden, coppery, silvery, or dark appearance can result from environmental exposure, chemical reactions, cleaning, plating, or wear rather than an extraordinary minting mistake. Strike alignment matters too. Rotate the coin carefully and compare the orientation of the designs, looking for characteristics that make sense for the particular issue. If something appears dramatically wrong, resist the urge to polish it, scrape it, test it with chemicals, or alter the surface. The original condition can be far more important than cosmetic improvement, and professional examination is always safer when the potential value is significant. This is where the legend of the Madison dollar can become surprisingly emotional. Picture someone finding a strange dollar in a box of old coins, inherited change, a forgotten collection, or an ordinary drawer at home. At first it looks familiar, perhaps only another dollar among hundreds, but then the portrait catches the light and the edge reveals something unexpected. The collector checks the date, notices the reference to Madison, and suddenly the ordinary object seems connected to the early republic. That moment of discovery is real even when the coin itself is not an 1809 or 1817 issue, because every investigation teaches the collector something about history, manufacturing, and authenticity. A coin does not need to be worth a fortune to be fascinating. Sometimes the real treasure is the chain of questions it creates. Where was it made? When was it made? Which mint produced it? Is the surface original? Is the edge normal? Is the apparent doubling genuine? Is the weight correct? Those questions turn a simple piece of metal into a detective story, and the collector who learns to answer them carefully becomes far harder to fool by exaggerated claims circulating online. Now comes the part that can make the imagination run wild. Value. The following figures should be treated strictly as illustrative storytelling examples, not as guaranteed prices or established values for an 1809 or 1817 James Madison dollar, because no official U.S. James Madison $1 coin was struck with those presidential-era dates. In a hypothetical collector scenario, a coin with a minor but legitimate variation might be discussed around the $2,500 to $3,500 level if extraordinary circumstances and strong market demand existed. A much more notable, authenticated rarity could be imagined reaching $9,000, while a particularly high-grade example might be discussed around $5,000. An unusual and independently verified mint anomaly could create a hypothetical $6,000 scenario, while a rare collector piece with compelling provenance might reach an illustrative $7,500. An exceptionally preserved or genuinely uncommon example could be imagined around $8,000, while an unusual discovery attracting intense collector demand might approach $8,500. In an extraordinary or historically significant hypothetical case, the storytelling ladder could climb as high as $9,000. But these numbers are examples for understanding how rarity, condition, authenticity, demand, and provenance can interact. They are not promises, appraisals, or claims that an ordinary Madison presidential dollar is worth these amounts. Think about what those numbers represent emotionally. $2,000 or $3,000 could feel like the beginning of a down payment on a home, while $5,000 or $6,000 could resemble a sudden windfall that appeared from something almost forgotten. $7,000 or $8,000 could change the way a collector remembers the day a coin was discovered, and an extraordinary authenticated result approaching $9,000 could become one of those once-in-a-lifetime stories repeated for decades. But the difference between an exciting story and a genuine numismatic discovery is authentication. Before believing a dramatic valuation, compare the coin against reliable references, record its weight without damaging it, inspect both faces and the edge under magnification, photograph suspicious features, and research whether the supposed variety is recognized by established numismatic authorities. If the coin appears potentially valuable, professional authentication can be worth far more than an internet opinion. A legitimate grading service or respected numismatic expert can determine whether the piece is genuine, whether an apparent error is actually a mint-made error, and whether its condition supports a premium. Never clean a potentially valuable coin simply to make it shine, because cleaning can permanently reduce collector appeal. There is another fascinating trap hidden in the phrase 1809 and 1817. Those dates can create the illusion that someone has discovered a single Madison dollar spanning his entire presidency, but dates on historical coins have to be interpreted within the correct series. Madison served from 1809 to 1817, Yet that does not mean a dollar bearing both years was produced by the United States Mint. A collector should therefore inspect exactly what the inscriptions say and determine whether the dates are part of a historical reference, a commemorative design, a reproduction, or an actual denomination and mint date. This is also where provenance becomes powerful. If someone claims that a coin has been sitting in a family collection since the 19th century, ask whether there are photographs, receipts, auction records, old envelopes, or other documentation supporting that story. Provenance cannot magically authenticate an impossible coin, but it can become valuable supporting evidence when combined with physical and numismatic analysis. The strongest discoveries are built from multiple independent clues rather than one dramatic inscription. And that leaves us with the real lesson of the James Madison dollar mystery. Rarity is not created by a dramatic date alone. It is created when history, authenticity, condition, manufacturing evidence, and collector demand all converge. If you have a modern James Madison Presidential dollar, examine it carefully rather than dismissing it simply because it looks ordinary. Check its weight, inspect the golden-colored surface, study the portrait and lettering, examine the rim for genuine abnormalities, rotate the coin to investigate strike alignment, and inspect the edge for unusual lettering or manufacturing problems. If you see apparent doubling, photograph it before touching the surface and compare it with known examples, remembering that damage and mechanical doubling can look deceptively impressive. And if the coin seems truly exceptional, let a qualified professional settle the question. The difference between a common coin and a remarkable numismatic discovery can sometimes be a tiny detail invisible to the naked eye, but that detail must survive careful scrutiny before the excitement becomes a valuation. So the next time an ordinary-looking dollar appears in a drawer, an inherited collection, an old jar, or a forgotten box, remember the Madison mystery, because the most dangerous mistake in coin collecting is believing either that every unusual coin is worthless or that every unusual coin is a fortune. Somewhere between those two extremes is where the real detective work begins. A genuine James Madison Presidential dollar is a modern tribute to a president whose influence helped shape the United States, while an alleged 1809 or 1817 Madison dollar demands an entirely different level of skepticism, because those dates belong to Madison's presidency, not to an official U.S. Madison dollar issue. And yet that unanswered question is precisely what keeps collectors searching. Could the next strange edge, unexpected weight, unusual strike, or authenticated error reveal something nobody noticed before? Maybe the most fascinating coin is still sitting unnoticed in an everyday place, waiting for someone patient enough to look twice. And just when you think you understand the Madison mystery, the next coin may reveal a detail even more shocking, one tiny feature that could completely change what you thought you were holding.